And the upper left for Team Liquid in the blue, looking to go and just really showcase that TVP chops. It's Cure.
And his opponent in the bottom left, spawning as the red Protoss player. He is Classic.
Twisted Minds' very own. So Nate, when we talk about Cure, again, I think I said this before the series started, but he has long had some of the best TVP in the world, if not at times the best TVP in the world. Very aggressive, very timing based, but still very good. The question though is, first of all, Golden Aura is a map that's a little bit harder to push on. But more importantly, with the recent spate of Protoss improvements, their ability to kind of play this gateway man style and hold off against things, and also Classic's love of this Stargate idea. He's been playing 2-gate Colossus, Blinkless Colossus, or maybe Blinkstalker Colossus openers into a third, but into a very quick Fleet Beacon Stargate carrier idea. When you think about those two ideas, this aggressive terror and this just very kind of defensive Stargate-ish Protoss player, how do you jive those two ideas?
Well, I think the contrast and what makes that's Protoss style you're talking about so interesting and so viable. We saw a little bit of this yesterday, and I think that it still holds true on the Terran side, that for Terran players, they're typically very stubborn. You don't often see Terran players like lose to something and say, what do I change about my strategy to compensate for this? That's almost never, ever what the conversation is. It's just, well, I just need to click my Marines faster, and I just need to be supply blocked for 1 second less, and I just need to have 20 more APM, and then I will be able to out micro and kill the other guy regardless of what he does. Which is a strategy that Terrans have held on to very, very tightly for pretty much the entire existence of this game. That's why so many players play very similarly to each other. But at the same time, that is the beauty of this Protoss strategy, because it takes everything that you think about TVP with how you need to have all these different units, the Marines and the Marauders and the Mines and the Liberators and the Vikings and the Ghosts, and then the Protoss eventually says, you actually just don't have the capability to deal with long-range tanky air units like those carriers, because it's that trap mentality that everybody falls into. They say, Terran has 5 barracks, can't he just make Marine? But it's never quite that simple. It's not just carriers. There's Tempest there, or there's Storm typically, or Colossus, like you mentioned with them, especially the double Colossi into it. It creates like a trap situation for the Terran, where the more variety they go with their army composition to deal with the standard Protoss units, the more vulnerable they become to the transition to carriers, because again, everybody always says, oh, you just got to get the Vikings in target fire. And then 99% of the time, you know, to get within the range to actually hit the carriers, they've got to eat Storms. They've got to get in range of the Stalkers. It's never as simple as just, oh yeah, the Vikings just click down the carriers. No, the Terran usually only has like 20 Marines with them, so those interceptors are brutal to deal with.
Yeah, and the other problem as well, when you talk, so you want to build a lot of Vikings to deal with this Skytoss idea, and you will hit overkill territory. You're going to build more Vikings than one-shot a single carrier.
They're just not as great against all the other things. Like, once you make enough Vikings to deal with the carriers, hypothetically, then they suck against everything else that you've got to deal with on that gateway man style you're talking about.
Yeah, and well, the other thing you talk about that is that you have overkill. Yes, we've updated how microable Vikings are, so they're a little bit easier to kite with. But they're he knocks the medevac down. Only one Widowmine pops down, so nice opening here for Classic. Although second worker died for Cyclone on the left side gets a worker, so that's
Cyclone poke.
There we go. But
just a little poke. He's going home.
There we go. He gets something. Be very happy about it. But the point I want to make here as well is, like, Vikings, yeah, they're more microable, but the recharge time, their attack rate, I guess, is maybe the way to say it. It's actually pretty slow. So yeah, you kill one carrier, and then it takes half a second before you can fire another shot off. Meanwhile, carriers attack at
like it's exactly that, the interceptor DPS. And then you think about there's other factors too that are maybe less important, but like the Protoss will obviously want to get attack upgrades for their carriers. Terran players going bio are not researching vehicle armor, they're getting ship weapons so the Vikings can kill stuff faster. Vikings don't really have any armor by default, so they're a little bit paper mache when it comes to taking damage from upgraded units. They are flimsy, they have the range, that's supposed to be what compensates for it. But again, it's just like, yeah, you kill the carriers, opponent warps in a bunch of zealots and stalkers. Are you going to try to land 15 Vikings to fight a full-fledged army when there might still be immortals or archons or storm there? No. So that approach is just a whole different thing. Thus far in this game, we've seen that mine drop be held. The Raven kind of coming over to harass, got a single kill, but so far so good. And I think, Bea, what you were talking about, this very cool, calm, collected macro style from Classic is what we're seeing. He has the observer getting vision. He's kind of poking, but it's just 3 stalkers. It's nothing serious. He's not committed. He is getting his Colossus up. He is getting his extended thermal lance, and he's getting that charge.
Yeah, and the other thing I look at here, so Fury, he's angling for like a 7:30 timing. This very classic 3-1-1 type of setup. And that generally, that is something that is meant to go kill the Protoss player, at least get substantive damage. Classic has been able to be so greedy by the map setup, by everything else, by knocking down that Widowmine drop and getting nothing done, that Cure, I was going to say, is going to have to go and it's going to be really hard for him to break this, but instead this is kind of, it's not a 6-minute timing, which generally gets the third base that much faster, but it's building into a 7:30, but he's still getting this third base a little bit faster. So looks like he kind of understands. He saw the Robo Bay there. He saw it researching. He's like, yeah, I'm going to try to put some pressure with this, but I'm probably not going to break anything. Let's go mid-game. And when you build into this timing, you've committed a decent amount into your army. So Classic, just by dint of the map and because of how well he's been able to defend, he's kind of already mitigated the first idea that Cure had about this game.
Yeah, and Cure otherwise, he kind of played straight up too, right? The tanks were kind of spread out in the main and the natural. He was being respectful of the fact that he knows Classic's the kind of guy that can poke him if he leaves openings. But I think that's a kind of also what we're seeing from Classic's side is him being respectful too. Neither of these guys are trying to force too much. They're both playing straight up, kind of taking what they can get. The little Raven harass is still there, so Classic doesn't want to completely give up the main base and just leave him there to be harassed forever. So this move out from Cure is more or less the first decisive action I think we get to see in this game. If he can accomplish something here, could be absolutely devastating. But Classic, he's got a nice army, Bayo. He's got 2 Colossi, he's got his extended thermal lance, +1 attack is halfway done, but he's still got plenty of stalkers to support them. So we'll just have to see what he can get away with as he sees the third base land for Cure.
I love
he's gonna take the gold, by the way,
yeah,
which Cure sees.
I love this actually. Oh, wait, no, yeah, you're right. Cure, see, I looked at this, I'm like, I love this. He's pulling wool over his eyes. He's expanding away, but no, yeah, you're right. Cure sees that immediately. So this is actually opening Classic up to a lot of problems. This army that he's making is tremendously powerful altogether. But if you have to defend a drop in the main base and something attacking the goal, good luck. It's not easy. So Classic, what's he doing? How do you defend a base that's hard to defend if you just sit back and defend? Well, you get on the aggressive. The best defense is, in fact, a good offense. So Warp Prism in the main base, he's posturing on the middle of the map here. And even if we see this double drop, trying to take down the gold, Classic also has got a 5th base on the way, so that's going to be fine. And he's going to put all... There's nothing at home for Cure. Yes, you don't want a base trade to Terran, but Classic's going to have such first movers advantage into this. And with the power of recall, if he moves right now, because Cure's now on the move as well with this army on the right side, this is going to look pretty good for him. But again, he has to move right now, and instead, he's just running back home. He doesn't know about this army. He's got to go try to defend the gold base. And we talked about first movers advantage. Well, this time, Cure's the one that's putting himself in an incredible position.
He recalls to the gold, and so it's like, oh yeah, you're defending it, but now the natural's completely wide open, and Cure just has, this is what you want to do, right? You want to stretch that Protoss army out. The Widowmine actually kills the Disruptor, gets the last hit before he can fire the volley. I mean, the tanks might have gotten it anyway. This is a really nice position for Cure, like he said. Natural's gone, Robo's gone, Robo Bay is gone. So as far as his tech's concerned, 3 auto turrets get dropped in the main mineral line. Cure is just like he put the pedal through the floor here. As soon as he saw that gold base and he held that prism, he's like, all right, now you asked for it.
Yeah, if you're gonna play as greedy as Classic did, and again, double expanding, taking the gold base, doing everything else, if you're gonna double expand like that, if you're gonna play that greedy, you gotta have vision on the map. You gotta put zealots or hallucinations or observers and pylons and things. You gotta have vision on the map to make sure that what just happened is not allowed to happen. Because at this point, Classic's army supply is somewhat competitive. His economy is down about 30 workers. It's such a bad spot to be in, and Cure's going to drop down once again. Stalker's kind of in position to deal with this, but the Stalker count just not high enough, so this drop's going to kill off all the Stalkers too. It's going to kill off probes, and now Classic has to take the fight on the other side. SCV's kind of pulled into this a little bit just to make sure that nothing happens. Classic, his upgrades are fine, right? He's going to have +2. The army supply is there, but the reinforcing it, I mean, attacking up this ramp, Nate, feels impossible.
Yeah, that's the situation, right? Is that Kira is a very classical style of Terran in terms of like the Korean Terran mentality with those big drops, the Nexus snipe types of plays, having that unit out there, right? He's not F2ing and pulling everything together. He's doing a really good job of separating and keeping his units keyed out. So he's happy with this big Marauder ball to say, if you want to try and push something, maybe he'll pull back for the force fields. He does have 3 ghosts with this army, so I mean, 3 EMPs. If he gets the sentries, then this could get ugly. But the other thing too is there's no real reason for him to move down this ramp into the Protoss either. He's just kind of zoning him away, so I guess he doesn't get pushed away from his own base. But next wave of Vikings comes out, and it looks like he wants to get out on the map anyway, maybe towards that gold. But Sensor Tower is going to see the army approaching the 4th as the Prism. It's the 3rd as the Prism. It's the 4th.
Yeah, it's important to point out here as well. There's no tech for Classic. Realistically, the Robo Bay's gone. He's on that Gateway Man style that you really gotta find. I think actually the missile turret killed the server as well, so Widow Mines are gonna be that much stronger. And yeah, a couple workers go down, but somewhere probes went down here as well. And Classic needs more than this. Yes, his army's play. If he kills the orbital, that's gonna be really solid, but it doesn't really seem possible. He does have that upgrade lead for the time being, and that does serve as a bit of a force multiplier here on the army. The supply is again fairly competitive. And Kira's moving down to the bottom side to try to shut down the gold base. So if he can go identify what's happening and say, look, I'm not going to defend this. This is fine. Pull my probes away. I still have my 3rd base. This Raven's, yeah, being annoying. But the army's not there. If I can go identify that's happening and go try to punish it, maybe that's an option. But instead, he's just backing up. Maybe trying to catch this drop on the map. But I mean, this is just more damage.
Yeah, very, 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 very tough spot to be in. Again, reminding, as you just said, that the tech was completely reset. So he only just rebuilt his Robo Bay. And before he lost it, he was trying to get the speed upgrade for his Warp Prism. So that's another key aspect. Like the harass capabilities really got neutralized. He wasn't able to upgrade the Prism. Obviously, he couldn't build any or make any Colossi or Disruptors without having the Robo. So he's only just got that natural going again too. So he's going to try and take this fight, and this becomes a very crucial one. Zealots are going to charge through. EMPs get thrown. Force fields as well. He gets a good chunk of the bio, but that supply for Kira is still looking really good. Disruptor shot just gets a single Widow Mine.
Yeah, you really need these shots to land incredibly well playing to try to play a comeback game like this. And he does have 2-2 versus briefly 1-1, but Kira's upgrades complete as well. Now, Vikings are mostly dead, but not before all the Colossus fell down as well. So stimmed bio with Ghosts versus just a bunch of Zealots and Stalkers. Nate, yeah, sure.
Yeah, he's a little overstimmed. He's just a teeny bit. One more stim on that army with just 3 medevacs. He's starting to hurt his forces quite a bit, just engaging out there. But he pulls them far back enough that he actually forces the recall with that drop on the south base. Those 2 medevacs have been waiting there the whole time. And again, it's just another hallmark. Sometimes we get to make that joke about the F2 key, the select all army, and it's always like a ha-ha, he-he kind of thing. But I always got to give a compliment when it's very obvious that a player is not using it, because he is just keeping all of his units where they need to be. And this is the kind of crisp play you expect out of Cure. I think Classic holding together as well as he has is nothing short of a miracle, but he's got a lot of ground to make up. He's still got a lot of ground to cover.
That he does. It's insanely impressive how close. Now it's started to separate, but how close he's been able to keep the army supply over the course of this game. Now, granted, because you're buying Zealots and Stalkers, which are just a little bit cheaper, this attack on the left side will kill off some of the Vikings, but man, concussive shell Marauders, yeah, they're gonna take everything out. This finally should do it. Now the supply's there. Yeah, there we go.
Wow, great. That, I mean, for me, I think that if I was like to try and sell what this series is, that's kind of it. That's what I expect. Whether it goes one way or the other for each of these games. Cure, very standard, straight up kind of opening. He did go with the double gas. Like, you could tell that he wanted to be at least some level of safe with how quickly he got the factory and the starport to do his mine drop with. But then he just shifted gears straight into standard Terran macro, had those big drops going, dealt with the Prism. And for Classic, maybe if he feels like these straight up games are going to be that tough, that we see him try to up the ante in game 2.
Yeah, I don't know. Now, Nate, we do have to point out, we have a new map. This is the first time in, we've been live for 3.5 hours today. I think we were live for 9 hours, 8 or 9 hours yesterday. So first time in 12 hours on the B stream that we get to take a look at Post Youth. It's a rare one.
It's the first time we ever get to cast in this tournament this map. That's fun. That is a fun fact. I guess a lot of people have been vetoing this one. Post Youth is probably one of the most You know, for the positive spin, it's one of the most unique maps we've ever had. You have 2 ramps out of your main, but your main is a double main. You have like a second base in there. It doesn't have a full set of minerals, but half of them are gold, and you do have 2 regular gas geysers. So it's like, do you want the 4 gas on 2 bases really fast? It's very easy to get that, but the third, it's a little bit more of a jump away. If you're either mining those minerals open or trying to take the linear one, so you have some slight spreads there. But this is just one of those maps where people do all the weird stuff that they can't get away with because it's hard to be super greedy sometimes, but it's easier here. There's my pitch.
On the flip side, you have incredible aggressive options too, because, well, you can go do the thing where you send workers over to mine out your opponent's mineral wall.
That too.
And
exactly.
Future did it to, I think it was Nina. I don't remember exactly who it was, but I think it was Nina in ESL Masters American region or America's regionals. So you have aggressive options, you have defensive options, and you just got a whole bunch of fun. I'm a big fan of the map. Not to play, but to watch. So let's see what our players have in store for us. Are they fans of it? We got ideas. Game 2. In the upper right, he's down a map in this series. He held on for a long time, but the aggression's just not quite really resolving in a way that he needed. For Twisted Minds, it's classic.
And spawning in the bottom left, we had some chat comments calling a little bit of harkening back to the old Polt Nexus sniping days. That's what he was doing last game. He is Cure.
I get that reference, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I'm just glad you're not talking about Pokemon, because I just then we get all the concept of me being confused.
I wouldn't do quite that. You know, I wouldn't say that that's out of my wheelhouse, but you know, I've got that eclectic taste. You want to talk about your favorite, which of your favorite of the 10 Saw entries is your best? You know, that's a little more my tempo. We could talk more about this map again. I could tell you that this is one of the easiest maps to do a double battlecruiser rush on, because you know, you just got this base right here that Cure's going for, so you have a little bit less minerals again to work with, but there's never been a map quite like this. We've had pocket bases before, but they would still be like a ramp leading there, you know, it would be behind your main back in like the orbital shipyard days. But how it's this map looks like someone took one of those 2v2 maps where you both spawn together, and then they said, well, let's make the second base a little more funky since there's nobody spawning there, and then we just go from there. But it's fast. It's a fascinating map, and there's a reason why we don't see it a lot, because again, it's just weird. It's hard to practice your normal stuff here, because you can definitely do stuff that you wouldn't otherwise be able to on other maps.
I mean, that's a great selling point for the map. For the longest time, we've had pools where every map is functionally the same. Oh, they're all wide open, or they're all choked, or they're all XY. They all have a pocket for easy to take fourth base, or whatever it is. Like, just every map, different tile set, slightly different layout, but very similar game idea. And on this map pool in particular, we have maps like Post Youth and Amphion and Dynasty that are super weird. We have more standard maps like Site Delta, Golden Ore, super defensive maps. It allows players to, instead of just grinding one idea over and over again, to just fully reach down to their Mary Poppins bag and pull something out of there they haven't played in years, and a lot of fun. But for now, Cure's doing something very standard. It's a Widowmine drop. It was Barracks Double Gas Factory into the Expo. Benefit of this map, of course, is that you can still do that and take it on location, unlike others where you'd have to kind of float it down, and that slows you down a little bit. And, well, I said Widowmine drops, and he does have Widowmines here, but it's gonna be a Viking first here, coming out of Cure.
He's anticipated this. He saw the Stargate, so I think he was expecting for it to either be, I'm trying to look at his vision. If it looked like it was an Oracle building on it. It looked like he canceled it and switched to the Phoenix after he scouted it, from just looking at Cure's vision, like what the Starport's hologram thing looked like, his last vision of it. So maybe he's just feeling slightly more defensive because of that. Obviously, killing the Phoenix would still be nice, but as we all know, or if you don't know, the Phoenix can survive one Widowmine shot, which is the key difference between it and the Oracle. The Oracle gets instigated, but the Phoenix can at least kind of go in, live to tell the tale, and then warn the rest of the Protoss, hey guys, we want to avoid these spots.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I do like Classic for multiple reasons going Phoenix Colossus on this map. You get 2 bases for free. You talked about that, so you know, going down and defending a little bit more locations, not as worrisome. You have a lot of dead airspace to cover though, and more importantly, if you're this if you're worried that the Terran player is just going to get aggressive, Phoenix Colossus is a great way to go, and just make sure you're safe. You have the Colossus to deal with Marines. Phoenix lift up everything else, and for now, Cure is going to deny the third base. Absolutely, and I really like this attack. It's just a bunch of stuff that kill Phoenix, right? Vikings and look at the Widowmine, by the way.
And you know, it's on some level, because of how defensible it is for either player doing this very tech-heavy style. I mean, you almost even tag Roddy in here for the little mini Protoss mech action. The Robo Stargate this quickly is just, it's one of those things. What you see people play a little differently on this map, because trying to push this normally is never going to be easy, but because of the air commitment, it's not like you can dive him either. Classic says, my Immortal's got the ramp. I'm just going to go pick off a few SCVs. And a Terran player in this situation, if you're not the kind of guy that's going to dump a bunch of money into missile turrets, you're just like, yeah, I just accept I'm going to lose a couple SCVs occasionally, but at least that means the Phoenix aren't picking up my tank, right? Or going for something else. I don't know. It's not the worst thing, I guess.
Yeah, again, it's also kind of one of those things where there's not a lot of... Classic would love to go take his third base, 100%, but there's not a lot of pressure from him to go down the map at any given time, especially as you pointed out, these Phoenix, they go and get 5 workers on the other side, and kind of balance out the things that Kira was doing. So now there's a third base on the way, and we should point out that, yeah, the natural's super easy. It's lacking some resources, but it's super easy to take. This third base is wide open. It is a hard spot to hold on to, part of why the Colossus are really nice. But I'm now really interested to see just how Kira tries to break it down. He's building Vikings very quickly into this game. We don't have medevacs, actually. It's 4 Vikings more, yeah.
It feels like he's he's just got some game sense about what he's seen and what he's dealt with already, that he's just like, yeah, this has to just be Phoenix Colossus. It's like, I probably can just make Vikings, and if I just overwhelm with my air units, what he has on the ground won't be that much. Which, I don't know. He doesn't really have a crazy amount of ground units. The fact that there is the Immortal and a couple shield batteries, like, it's Cyclones. The Cyclones will die very fast when the fight starts, unless he takes a very dominant victory. So little trades like this, okay, that's where you start to feel a lot better for Cure. Classic, if he's planning on having the Phoenix be a part of his army, that observer, by the way, just outside of the scan, hate to see it, then you don't want to lose those Phoenix before the fight actually happens, because then you can't protect the Colossus. So there are 5 Stalkers, it's worth mentioning, but there's no Blink, so...
No, Charge is actually going to be the thing. This is how you play Phoenix Colossus. It's not a surprise, but Charge is going to be the thing you get out of this. And if Classic can survive until Charge, his army's incredible. This army that Cure has with 0... He's got 1 medevac now, but with very, very little healing with all these tanks and all these Marauders. Yeah, Charge is going to be incredible, but it's about 40 seconds out, 30 seconds out, something like that. And we already see this elevator push coming out of Cure, getting ready to make something happen. But on the flip side, tanks aren't really in range of the Nexus. They're going to kill a pylon, but that's not incredibly relevant. You do need to start leapfrogging them just a little bit forward. And on a single medevac, Nate, that's extremely vulnerable. That's not the easiest thing to make happen. So he's going to start to make it happen right now. Cyclone's up onto the high ground. And Classic thinking about this. Hey, Charge is 20 seconds out. Can he last 20 seconds?
Gal, that's a dangerous question to ask. That disruptor shot goes straight through, but actually manages to kill it before it can pop. He gets 1 of the Colossi. Second one is still standing. Vikings are going to be able to pick it off, though. So pretty much everything dies except the Cyclones in the main with the medevac and 3 of the Vikings. But as far as the tech is concerned, he kills the disruptor. He gets both Colossi. And if I'm trying to look at silver linings here, maybe it's that... Well, I always say equal worker count. Terran is making more money. Protoss does have access to the 3rd mineral line, so that extra money is kind of mining the base out maybe faster than Cure would want. If I'm looking for upside here, Cure is getting the 3rd base, but he needs to take that 3rd. That's definitely a top priority for Cure. He got some damage done, but it's not like Classic isn't making good money by having all these mineral patches accessible, and he's going to go for the gold too.
Yeah, you talk about equal worker count. Cure is double saturated on both bases. 21 out of 8 on the hybrid base. So yeah, he's got a lot of workers, but
he's not getting much mileage out of that worker lead. No. I'd say if he's got 53 SCVs, maybe like at this point 40 of them are mining. It's kind of how it feels.
Well, for now, actually, Classic's going to find this army in the middle of the map, chase everything down. And the problem,
grab.
Yeah, this is fantastic. The problem with this army that Cure has, especially again lacking medevacs as he is, against Charge Lot Phoenix, which is kind of what this has turned into, you don't run away. You win the fight or you die. And for now, he's actually doing a really nice job finding a spot behind the mineral line, but the Stalkers, they had to deal with reinforcements. And Classic's actually going to have to run away from this. The tech is gone. All the Zealots are gone. The Immortals are gone.
There's no blink. This is where the no blink really hurts, because you're right. The Zealots, you're not microing them in this kind of situation. You got to let them do their thing and try to get value out of your heavier hitters. That being said, right as Zakir sends a Liberator out, Classic's got a Prism landing in the main base, warps in 6 Zealots, and it gets absolutely instantly jumped on. I think Liberator should be able to get the Prism. Zealots get choked up on a turret, so unfortunately for Classic, that's another punch he's going to throw, kind of just landing on air. He does have his gold base situated, though. I think the jump on the army in the top left bought him a lot of time, and now you've got a 4-base Protoss against a 3-base Terran, where, again, it's, is it, though, right? Because that the natural expansion income just dips off at such a different rate than on any other map.
And, I mean, the main base, also not a lot of money there.
Yeah.
We can call it a 2-base Terran, right? Main base, the main base and the natural, they both only have half the mineral patches a normal base would have. And by the way, I mean, you're still 18 out of 8 on this. You pull the SCVs over, dude. You got 8 out of 16 here. You can mine.
He's getting a few of them. He pulled the idle ones. He's getting a few of them. He still has about 15 on it. But that's the struggle with this one, because if you get used to, you play a lot of games, and I think that's another reason why we see this map get vetoed, because you play a lot of games, and in StarCraft there are some things that you just don't think about, and it's a lot of that stuff that is like ingrained in your muscle memory, your macro cycles, building workers. Those typically aren't choices that you're making so much as like you kind of just have a feel for when you stop, and otherwise you just do it over and over again. So this map kind of challenges that dynamic, since you don't need the same number of workers on every base. You start losing money a little faster, but you make more at the beginning. It's very different. It's very different. Disruptor shots are going to come out, though, trying to catch this army in the middle. Gets a tank, a Viking, and a Marauder. Classic. It's been some whiffs, some big hits, but so far he's taking some decent trades in the big fights. Just down about 20 supply, but there's a whoop and a 7 Zealots to try and even the odds.
That they are, but hell, Kier's going to pull out just in time. Widowmine's now in the front, trying to get whatever shots they get. Nice splits actually out of Classic to minimize the Widowmines. Those force fields on the right side are going to get a lot done, but Kier still splits away. More disruptor shots are going to try to find whatever they can get, and Kier plays a miraculous fight despite the force fields, despite everything else. And yes, the Zealot Warpins are a problem. The Stalker's playing on the left side. That means they're very vulnerable to the tank shots, the Marauder shots, and this is starting to look very good for Cure right now. Zealots continue to get knocked down. Stalkers continue to die. And the disruptor count is just not there.
He got all but one of the disruptors. One more just finished, but he's starting the second robot, so I think, yeah, Classic just kind of had that same realization. He's like, I don't think making one disruptor at a time is going to cut it anymore, and maybe he'll have wanted that second robo a little bit earlier in retrospect, but this position for Cure, he's got a high ground siege up with tanks and Widow Mines on top of Classic's 4th base. So, well, Classic, it did take that the triangle third from the gold base. It's just one of those situations where his economy is being disrupted. He lost all those powerful tech units, and defending from the low ground against tanks hardly feels fair. No. Let's just get that out of the way. It's tough. It's tough when you're being sieged up on from above.
Yeah, and the benefit as well. So Classic loses the base. That doesn't feel very good. He's got Zealot run by going in, and maybe just get something, maybe not. We're gonna with these Widow Mines, they're gonna be a problem, but even still, the bio gets back. Point being, though, Classic, he got up to double forge. He's got 1-1 done, 2-1's gonna be done soon. And when we talk about this Gateway Man style, yes, the supply is not where he would like it to be. He'd like to be roughly even with the Terran if you're going to play like this. At least he's going to have that upgrade advantage. That makes the Zealots a little bit more tanky. That means that they do a little bit more damage. But right now, the Disruptors, they do have to land, and they're just not. These splits from Curinate are beautiful. And yes, Zealots are going to try to join the fray. And yes, Disruptor comes in from another angle. That one's a lot better. It kills a couple of Marines, but most importantly, softens this tank up in the extreme. But you got to get more. You got to buy just a little bit more time.
It's like the disruptors. That's your DPS, your assassin, and everything else here is just tanking and supporting for those. The rest of your army is not really built to clean this up on its own, but if he can just give himself an opportunity to get 1 or 2 more of those big juicy disruptor shots, then we can see the game turn on its head, as it has so many times in the past. But I think that's the other side of it too, is the disruptor. It's a skill shot, right? You gotta micro it towards your opponent. You need to get it to that place. It's not automatic. It sends the alert for your opponent as well. So for Cure, all he has to do is just kind of avoid those, try to take the head-to-head fights against the, you know, the gateway man style, as you put it, and he won't lose those head-to-head battles without taking a disruptor shot. So that's really the key focus for our boy Cure right now.
I think it's important to point out as well, Classic really does take a solid fight. Zealous on the left side will go down, but he knocks the tank down, forces things back. Cure, in the chaos of this game, doesn't have a Ghost Academy. And those disruptor shots are nice, but he doesn't have a Ghost Academy. If you're playing against disruptors like this, you really want just a couple EMPs, and because that's the difference between having to kite away from disruptors and kiting on top of them, knocking them down. EMP plus, say, +2 bio ball burst is going to kill those disruptors off time and time and time again. You can go dive in and make that happen. But in the absence of the Ghost Academy, Classic can really start to bully his way onto the map like he's doing right now, separating the army disruptor shot on the right side. Doesn't get a ton here, but there are more where that came from. Cure, though, thinks he's got a concave, tries to get on top of this. Once again, the shots, they're getting really good, though, and that means Cure is going to have to think back about what's going to happen. Now, for the most part, the shots are done. Most of the shots have been spent. Now, Cure, maybe he can knock down some of this tech, kill off some of these disruptors. Force fields are going to do what they can, Nate, but Cure, he's not stimmed anymore. He's slowing down just enough time, and that gives Classic just the time he needs to reset.
Yeah, he manages to take out the Widow Mine. There is a tipping point you reach with the disruptors where between their own cooldowns, you kind of just always have one that's about to refresh. And if you can get into that rhythm as Classic, where you can push him away and not have your disruptors get dove on, more or less, then that can really just become a nightmare for Terran. And I think that it's a testament to both of them, because I feel like a lesser Terran actually does eat one or two of those disruptor shots, and Classic just rolls him over, and people are like, wow, can't believe that. And then for Cure, some of the splits that we've seen on this staging ground, this high ground, he has made some funky movements with his army. They are both, you can really see just how hard they're battling each other for this.
Yeah, man. This is playoffs, or I mean, technically it's not, but we're in the knockout stage here. This might as well be playoffs. This
do you think these guys want to go to the $1 million tournament? Do you think they really want to go there, though? Like, do you, though?
You know,
is that what they're fighting for a chance at the $1 million tournament? That makes a lot of sense. I can see why they'd be motivated.
Yeah, just a little bit. And, like on even ping as well. I mean, they are showing out here in every game, really every series we had thus far today. This is a terrifying spot for Classic to find himself in, on the low ground in the choke, but Cure's not in position to make it happen. And I love, by the way, what we see here. He's recognized that he's forced Cure into a composition that is very much ground-based, dealing with disruptors, Widow Mine, all that stuff. He got 4 Colossus. There are no Vikings on the field right now. A couple are being made.
There's nothing for this. He just had 2 just come out, but you make such a good point. He doesn't have any way to engage this. Look at the spread he has, but I don't know if he dives with this. That's going to be enough bail. This is looking dicey.
It is a couple disruptors here just looking to force the splits, but the splits are really good for Cure. Is it enough though? It doesn't look like it. Classic, he makes the tech switch. Cure was not expecting this, so even with the splits being really solid, the Colossus, these Warwalkers, they shred everything, +3 attack on him as well. And Cure, this is, man, what a game from Classic, coming back from such a deficit.
The patience from Classic. Yeah, this game was a mess. This game was an absolute mess. I find it extremely impressive. Classic finds a way to carve it out, because I felt like this whole game we had a pretty good read on what was happening, but the switch back into Colossus was just the clutch move. Even we had tunnel vision so much on this disruptor dance, because it was awesome. Let's face it, there was some great micro by both of them. I thought that Cure was kind of putting himself into this really monster mode spot by just dodging so many of them. But the second Robo, it wasn't just for the disruptors. When you just surprise him with 4 Colossi and the other guy doesn't have any Vikings, that's just, poof, Classic staying alive.
Yeah, dude, what a, man. Okay, maybe Stats Creator was a little bit one-sided, but it was awesome to see Stats as dominant as he was looking in that game. And then we had Spirit Lambo, which was just this incredible 5-game series. And we are 2 games in to Classic and Cure, both players trading punches. It's a good day. It's a good day to be a StarCraft fan. I kind of looked over to Twitch chat as we got out of the game and just people like, man, I love StarCraft. It's so nice to have this. It's like, yeah, you're right. These players are, there's a lot on the line here. These players are really, really shelling out. And now, Nate, we've had 2 games, right? We've had 1 game that was relatively standard. Classic kind of shot himself in the foot by taking a gold base. He didn't really have to. But game 2, again, getting a little bit weird. Do they start to shake things up a little bit? Are there wrinkles that you think that they're going to start to show as we get into game 3, game 4, or game 5?
I'm gonna make maybe my hottest take of the day, and I'm gonna say that somewhat interesting game. I'd say that pretty great game that we just got to watch. I do think is a partial product of that map. I do think that there's a level of flexibility that's kind of offered with the easier to secure but maybe less long lasting, if that makes sense, base. I love the Phoenix into the Colossus as the opener and that kind of back and forth, that Cyclone Viking mine thing. I don't know that we get a game like that on any other map, especially since we're going to a much more traditional one on Oceanborn. But it makes me really happy that we had a game it makes me happy that we got to see that map once, and it was a game like that, and not some example of somebody being like, yeah, well, this is how you cheese someone on it, you know.
Although, I mean, as a connoisseur of good StarCraft, I would like to believe that I do appreciate all types of things. I am so happy that if this was a crazy cheese game, I also would have enjoyed it, because you don't get to see him all that often.
As long as he doesn't like instantly bop him, and then the whole thing is just like everybody in chat's just like, well, that's why the map's vetoed. It's like, well, we didn't get one of those games, so that's nice.
My favorite thing about that is I kind of happened to look over midway point in the game, and I took a look at chat, and they're like, oh man, this is why Terran never loses this map. And
well, never say never.
Yeah, well, I think the people are a little bit of a liar on that one. Anyways, we have game 3. We're going to get into it. In the upper left, in the blue, almost in a winning position, but not quite able to see it all the way through. For Team Liquid, it's Cure.
And his opponent in the bottom right, switching gears back into Colossus for the Game 2 dub. He is Classic. It's pretty fun getting to do the best of fives today, Bayo. It's been a good time. It's been a good time casting some StarCraft again, getting to see some of these crazy players up close, and I'm just glad we're getting good games, man. It's all we can really ask for. That Lambo series got me all fired up. This one's getting me fired up again. Already feels like it has the makings of going all the way. And normally that's something that can be a little tiring. It can be a little exhausting, right, for everybody involved. But when the games are at this pace, so that it's just non-stop action, especially 2 top Korean players going at it, it's just fun to see. We have the eBay block out of Cure for this game, and I'm very interested to see what his follow-up's going to be, what Classic is going to do about it, and all that jazz.
Well, Nate, you gave me a weather report yesterday about what was happening in a game. I can give you a weather report actually in Dallas, and why this is in part, we're totally fine with it going late. It is thunderstorming like mad down here. It's pouring rain. There's nothing else for anyone to do rather than just sit inside. Oh, he's trying. Oh, I love this. He's even blocking both.
Double block.
Got him.
Well, you don't see that. I'm not sure I've ever screenshot 2 engineering bay blocks at the same time before, so I can once again do that thing. My favorite part of casting any StarCraft tournament or watching any tournament, Bayo, is always you see something you've never seen before at some point, and that's a funky way for us to start here. Cure taking a very assertive, confident stance early in this one.
God, Cure's such a jerk.
I love it. I love to see it. It's just he's got just enough of that like cocky Maru-ness to him, but in the best way. I mean, Maru's pretty great too, so there's not really a downside there. It's fun to kind of see sometimes the players' moves in the game kind of show some of how they're feeling with that. I felt like we got that out of Hero. If you guys missed it, there was somebody who tried to block Hero, and then the next game he went Pylon Cybercore block against a Terran, and I was like, it's such an uncommon thing to have happen. You have to imagine like Hero's just being cheeky, you love to see that kind of personality demonstrated through the gameplay.
It's funny you say, oh, he's taking a page out of Maru's book. Well, actually, I'm going to blame this out of being a member of Team Liquid, because Clem does this all the time. He'll do single eBay block. He'll flirt with a double eBay.
Not a bad guy copy either.
Yeah.
He's been doing pretty well. I think for all the fans, people that have wanted over the years to see non-Korean Terrans do well, Clem has been probably the best inspiration that we've had in a very, very long time. Love that guy. Yeah, he shows people new ways to play that game constantly too.
Yeah, he's got that problem though, right? We talked about this. Just play like Maru. He can beat Protoss. It's like, well, yeah, but I can't do that. Clem has that same issue where, yeah, he can beat anyone, but it's because he's literally microing at 2 spots at the same time. Like, that is not something that is, I don't know, Nate. Maybe I'm just casting aspersions here.
Well, we don't all have access to the speed force like these guys. It's true. Somehow Maru and Clem have the ability to just observe things at a much, reduced speed as us. They just see things happen in slow motion, and they're waving their hands around, and to them it's like an orchestra being conducted, and to us it's like we can't even see their hands moving. They're going so fast. It's a whole different game at the top of the level. And it's a great conversation segue, because these are both two guys that, when we talk about opportunities, you're trying to make that big jump, that's who you have to overcome. These events are where you have to try and make that leap to the next level. You've had all these competitions, these practice online, these cups, but this is where the max pressure is on. And remember, again, making it far enough in this tournament is there's more than just the prize money and the standings on the line. Some of those guys at the tippity top, whoever wins this, might be one of those players that's already seeded in. So you're talking about, you want to get as close as you possibly can, because you have absolutely no idea who that final four is going to end up, where those slots are going to end up, etc., etc.
And I really like what we're seeing from Classic as well. So he was delayed. His natural was pretty heavily delayed. eBay blocking the third as well. But he also kind of recognizes that if you commit those minerals at that time to, yeah, you get most of them back, but even still, if you commit the minerals at that time, that slows everything from the Terran down. He's going to make some units because, again, he's not spending the money on the Nexus just yet. And he can go and send those Stalkers on the other side and put a lot of pressure on this base. So it didn't kill a lot of workers, but it did force it. Block off mining, half damage on the orbital. Maybe that turns into something later on. But what I think is actually really interesting about this game is we see Classic kind of poking a little bit. He's been playing a lot of this 2-base Colossus. Blink Stalker Colossus, 3-gate 2-base, blah, blah, blah. It's a very similar story. But he's playing a very straight-up game here. In this game number 3, it's going to be 3-base, Blink Stalker, charge, getting immortals, delayed, well, not delayed Colossus, but a much more standard time Colossus play. And that has unlocked a little bit of pressure on the map. It has sped up his third base just a little bit. And I wonder, Nate, as we take a look at what's happening here, how much of that is a reaction to, oh, my natural's delayed, so I can't maybe I need to get a little bit more of an economic comeback. And how much of that is playing into how Kyr's been playing in this tournament thus far? How much of that is the map?
Yeah, right. And this is such more back into the standard, and perhaps we can be a little more informed by game number 1, where even though Classic, he actually did something kind of similar to this, right, on Golden Aura with his like mid-game setup as he transitioned. He just had, I think it was 3 Stalkers that game, and he was just kind of like, I'm going to do a bit of poking, I'm going to do a bit of plotting, but nothing super serious, nothing super committed. And Kyr, he plays very respectfully. There's not a dozen Stalkers outside of his base. He does have a tank sieged in the main. Now that the medevacs are coming out, he's actually tucking it back even further. So you just see there's a tremendous amount of respect between these two competitors for each other. As much as damage as they try to do, like they're both on it. He's ready for that, and also Kyr, Classic's observer is just following that medevac on the bottom side of the map. So they're both keeping tabs on each other quite a bit.
Yeah, it's also interesting as we take a look at this. So we talked about very standard play out of Classic. Kyr's doing the same thing. We are 7 minutes in. Stim is done. Combat shields, give it 20 seconds. +1, give it 30 seconds. The third base is getting started on location. This is a game that we have seen 100 times, 1,000 times. Protoss is won. Terran is won. We have 2 Colossus ready here. No Raven, so there's no shutdown available. Shield batteries are well in position. And as Classic holds the high ground, Kyr's going to try to make this happen, does scan out the observer, knocks that down. But given the setup that Classic is in, this feels like it's going to be really hard for Kyr to properly break this. And again, we talked about this, I think it was last game, maybe the first game. In this setup where you build up to this 7:30 timing, your natural's delayed. And if you don't get something done, you just put yourself a little bit further behind. So Kyr has to get something done with this. But for right now, with kind of Classic's positioning, how he's set up, that feels pretty hard for Kyr.
Yeah, it's in a way, it's like I do think of Kyr as the more aggressive of these two, and I feel like some of the trends in this matchup have shown that, but they're both so good at posturing. And I feel like when we talk about why that comeback was even possible for Classic last game, it was so bizarre because he had all those disruptors, he took all those disruptor shots, and Kyr dodged all of them. And even with whatever he was able to put together, like Classic still kind of got the better of him because he was so focused on doing that micro and that harass that he didn't quite catch that tech transition back. And I find that mostly interesting because what were we talking about when we first started this series, Bayo? 2 more medevacs are going to arrive in the bottom. Kyr might force it, but it was that late game transition. Let's see what happens with this drop, though.
Yeah, 4 Stalkers here are not nearly enough. So even with the observer, even with the tech and everything else, it's going to have to be recall damage already getting done. Zealous as they warp and getting targeted down. And now this drop's going to be handled. Stalkers are going to try to get a medevac. They're not going to get it. But this does unlock Cure on the map a little bit. Certainly, first of all, Recall's gone. And that means that Classic has to play a little bit more defensively. Can't quite be posture quite as well on the map. It also means he's in the main base secure. He's going to find his way, big drop, big boost into the natural, at least siege up outside of the natural. Put tanks there, make life very hard for Classic. Stalker or Colossus do reach this, and with an overcharge, actually, he's going to be fine. And on the other side, look at these Zealots, Nate. Yeah, Classic defends this for the most part. Can Cure defend the Zealot run by?
Yeah, this is a really good counterattack. I mean, we've seen him try to go for this a few times. Like, that Prism's had a hard time getting in on the last map, right? But at the very least, delaying that third as much as you can. Think about the economic gap. Even though mules are in play, we've got a pretty nice... That income tab is looking really good for Classic right now. Even if he's able to get back over to the third, drop some mules there, he's trying to create these little bits of gaps. That extra 1,000 minerals a minute, that's 20 supply of Zealots for the next fight, right? That he either would or would not have compared to his opponent if he didn't get that economic damage. So these are those little bits that add up, and I like where Classic's going. Actually, now that we mentioned the Stargates already, Bayo, I'll just point out in the production tab, there it is. Classic saying, yeah, I think we might as well just try and get to that place instead of forcing the issue.
Yeah, I like that. I think this is really cool to see as this happens. It's also interesting to see Classic. Actually, I guess it's not. We've seen Classic playing around with Storm quite a bit recently. Good news for Cure though, this is not game 2. He's not skipping Ghost for like 15 minutes or whatever it was. He will have Ghost available when Storm is done, and it's a pretty important thing. But it's the overlapping fields of splash damage, Colossus, Disruptors, Storm, that make this so hard for the Terran to engage in. And on top of that, you talked about this, I think even in the break, how hard it is with the Viking micro back and forth. As you get into range, Storms are gonna get dropped on your head. But look, okay, so I'm looking at production here. We're talking about carriers. We're getting ready for that one. I guess it's okay. Just a single Phoenix to poke away this drop to make sure it can't stand. Man, is he gonna do some weird Phoenix thing? But no, he's not max packs. That's not gonna happen.
I think it's a good question to ask though, Bayo, because to your point, he actually didn't see the Stargate, the first one, get built. So at the very least, him using that one Phoenix to clear out the drop is at the bare minimum, it's the indicator. Hey, I have the Stargate. I'm thinking about making air units. I already have made one. I'm unlikely to be spamming out Phoenix 11 minutes into a game like this. So there are ghosts. We do have Templar approaching. This might be the last little skirmish while he tries to buy time to transition. But okay, Classic's going in a little deep here. This is a big spread that Cure's going to be able to get on him. The EMPs, not quite. Well, he actually hits all the Templar, but he also kind of eats one of the Storms. Warp Prism does come in to reinforce first. Colossus gets knocked down. Is he going to try and go inside the Prism, dodge it? No, Vikings just go for the Prism first. And I have to say, it's a curious timing for the move out here for Classic when he just invested into triple Stargate fleet bacon. He wasn't maxed out, so it's not like he was trading supply into carriers. Now he's actually attacking again. So I guess this is his desperate attempt to hold him at home while he builds those carriers.
I mean, the best defense is a good offense, but the problem is that this is just not a good offense. That's the problem. And it's not one of those, it's like, okay, well, you made this attack, you got fully surrounded. Stalker's doing a pretty good job, and carriers will be out soon. +1 on that is done. Any Vikings he can get is actually a pretty big deal. So, Nate, I look at this, it's like, okay, this feels really bad. And it still feels really bad, but Classic, he's on 71 workers to 59. He's got the carriers out soon. He's building more Colossus. Even if he has to give this fourth base up, which I think he might, if he can give him 45 seconds, he's going to be in a pretty solid position this game. Or if the Storms just land, that's going to be fairly nice here. He's so close to what he needs. He's very close to what he needs. But the question again, can he survive that long?
Yeah, that's the hardest part. He does have the 3 carriers out now, but as many of us have seen in games before, they don't spawn with all the interceptors. The interceptors have all already died, so he's trickling them out one by one defensively. So it's like, did I trade my whole army to make the carrier transition? Yes. Did I have to? I think you'd rather have all those gateway units meat shielding for these 3 carriers while you try to get 3 more. But instead, the Cure just capitalizes on a really big blunder, more or less. It's the only mistake I can think of, like the only huge mistake this game from Classic was going up that ramp as far as he did, right as he was starting to build the carriers. It just seemed like he was being, it's like that's just a lot of resources that weren't in his army. That's all. Good game by Cure though.
Yeah, I think it goes down to if Classic had just postured, which I think looking back on that is probably what he was trying to do, saying, yeah, I'm being aggressive. I'm on the other side of the map. I'm doing all this, right? But I'm not really looking to fight. I'm looking to poke and trade and maybe get a couple Colossus wipes. That'll be nice. Get a good Storm, whatever. But I'm not looking to really fight. And I'm keeping you back home. And that allows me to go get by the time that I need to get my carriers out. Okay, fine, sure. But the moment you step that far onto Terran, the Terran side of the map, into Terran territory, Cure's good enough. He's going to capitalize on this. He's got Ghost. He lands EMPs on every single High Templar. And then all of a sudden, everything's dead. Everything is get crushed down. And you just do not have the time on it. Even if Oceansborn's a bigger map, you don't have the time to get your 6 carriers and more Colossus. You don't have the time or the money to get it all out. Not fast enough.
That's tough. It's really tough. It feels like on one hand, I see what you're saying with like he feels like he needs to buy that time, but it's like, well, again, I'm just gonna go back to your first point though, which is I still think the biggest thing, the posturing, where he went. Like that choke point is there. If he kind of threatens him, he tries to play around that center area. I think that makes sense. Like his army's very technical with the Colossus, all the High Templar. He's not playing this big meaty style where he's got a bunch of immortals and charge lots and stalkers to support him. It's very, very technical, and he's transitioning into something that is still technical. So just giving up the meat and potatoes is just saying to the Terran, if you attack me right now, I'm going to have 1 warp-in of units tops. And I think we'll probably see Classic maybe try to dial it back before he makes that transition, if that's what we see in this game. But now he's on match point.
That he is. And in the upper left, on match point, looking to move on to the next round. 1 more step away from the playoffs, assuming he wins this. For Team Liquid, it's Cure.
He's played a dominant, aggressive Korean Terran style against this man in the bottom right. Our red Protoss player needs 2 games to bring himself back. He is Classic.
All right, Nate. It's Side Delta. We talked about weird maps and standard maps. This is a little bit closer to that standard setup. We've seen Classic go. He plays 2-base setup, 3-base setup. We saw Phoenix Colossus once. And it's kind of funny. You look at these games. The games he lost were very much games that he lost more so than Cure won. And that's not taking anything away from Cure. He won very well. He played very well. But I think we just need to see Classic play within himself. It's like he's almost trying too hard to make something happen. And I don't know.
Yeah, that's how it felt, right? That's how it felt. It felt like, you know, if you drop a battery or 2 and just try and do like that, not full turtle, but like half shell maybe as you just get in the carriers, because they have that tipping point, right? And if you have the Colossi alive and carriers, it's hard to ignore the fact that that's just a lot of targets for the Vikings too. But you know what? I think we can throw out those conversations. We can throw out our deliberations over what's already happened. Classic has decided that he's going to take things into his own hands here to either even this one out or bow out. As well, we've got a little cheeky probe outside the main base of Cure.
This is
Here we go.
Please tell me this isn't proxy voice, because this is positioned
The ladder special.
Oh man, this was the meta. This killed so many Terrans a while ago. Unfortunately, you talk about Classic bowing out, or showing up in a good spot. Pure scouts it immediately. He's got that star sense going. He is looks like we're about to lose 1 more Protoss.
Oh, look at that. He cancels the command center, restarts it in his main base, and I think this is what makes Cure very dangerous. One specific thing I will compliment him on, because when we cast him yesterday, I tried to touch on this, but he plays an unholy amount of online tournaments. Even before all the tournaments became online for a bit, he has such a volume of best of 1 games. And situations like this are where that practice becomes so nice, because that's where you see people do these kinds of crazy aggressive builds. So Classic's got a little bit of work to make up. It's going to be Void Rays, there's going to be shield batteries outside of his base. How is he going to handle it? I don't think he can do too much to push this away until that Cyclone's done, but once it's out, he's going to need to do his best to keep that Cyclone away from the Void Ray too, because yeah, once that bad boy locks onto you, it's tough. It's weird. Like, both the units do tons of damage to each other, and whichever one like doesn't react first usually just dies.
I can't believe he's going for this build. I legitimately have not seen this build in a pro game in about 2 years. Ever since the Void Ray got nerfed, ever since the shield battery got nerfed. It's been a long time, but I guess that's the benefit of it, right? You can go for something that really hasn't been used. It's been so far out of the meta for so long that maybe even if Cure knows technically how to handle it, he's not quite prepared. This one Void Ray has to, or this Cyclone has to stay alive. Void Ray gets low, and the shield batteries. This is one of the reasons why we don't see this all that often. Shield battery's done, but it has so little energy to it that you can't even really heal a Void Ray up anymore. That being said, those Cyclones, second one goes down, first one gets, there we go.
I feel like that supply block did everything that Classic needed. Cure is just in a really tough spot because that barracks, like everything he's building off of is also in range. So until he has something to push the Void Rays back, he gets overly aggressive with them, which I think is the correct move. If the Cyclone pops, he has to send it to the right, but it's the Widow Mine, so he's gonna try and burrow it, not able to get it down. And what do you do here? The SimCity even works against him a little bit with the Stalkers getting tucked against the CC for a moment. The shield batteries are still doing their thing, and I guess if we think about this, it's really just that you have to get to a point where you can at least get control of your main base, and Cure has failed to do that. So GG, and Classic is going to tie this up. You know, YOLO moves like that are precisely why you like to see that. I would think that Cure is the kind of guy who has more experience with that, playing best of one, but at the highest level, it's like if you play the ladder, you'll see this maybe once a day, depending on how much you play. But in tournaments, like you said, Bayo, it's been out of the wash cycle for a while. We're using some different detergent over here.
Yeah, I love that this worked. I love that we get to see this because I think I even said in the broadcast, okay, Cure sees the Stargate, he sees what's happening. It's like, okay, one less Protoss in the playoffs, one less potential. This should be a 3-1. But it's been so long since we've seen that build. In Classic, he just hits the timing. Cyclones, they do less damage. They're not as good. Yes, they're a little bit tankier, but they're not quite as strong as they used to be, even if you can reactor them out. And certainly, if the reactor's not there, if things happen, well, you need to keep every unit alive. That's the long and short of it. Every single unit for the Terra needs to stay alive to make sure that you're okay. And if that doesn't happen, well, this build can still work.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is I think another side of it is people often underestimate it. People often underestimate the Void Ray build for all the reasons that you mentioned, but that's the thing. Like these strategies are not necessarily great because they can always work. They're great because people dismiss them. They don't really practice against them, and for the most part, it's like that response, right? To say, oh, proxy Void Ray, oh, it's the ladder build. Oh, nobody does this in tournaments because it's not good. But it's like, can you really put into words what makes it not good when there's also there's obviously reasons why it can be good? And I think going up against anybody that tries to do a fast expand without, this is one of those reasons why sometimes you see that early gas taken. You see people try to pull out and stop it from going up in the first place. But Cure just kind of felt like he just didn't take it seriously enough, maybe, or perhaps he felt like his build was just never going to be able to deal with it. I don't know.
I mean, he was pretty dead at the end of it. It was double the supply, nothing to deal with the voids.
Brutal.
Don't blame him for falling out of that one. But now, one final game to move on to round 3. Everyone's life's on the line here. In the bottom left for Team Liquid, it's Cure. There we go.
Spawning in the top right. So I was like, I've always tried to give I'm so used to them doing that zoom in and playing that guitar riff. So I'm just, that time buffer. In the top right, we have the red Protoss player. He is Classic. Bringing out a bit of cheddar. We got that one caught the ire of Twitch chat. They see the Void Rays and well, there you go. Those prismatically aligned beams aren't just warming themselves up, Bayo. They're warming up everybody here, for better or worse.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? That a Protoss player would create ire because that is their homeworld. And
I love you. You're a good sport.
I should not be laughing at this so much. I should not find this as funny as I do. But
it is a video game. There is a lot of money on the line, but we're also having a good time, and there's nothing wrong with that. We've got some great games, thankfully, so there's not a lot of legwork for us to do when we get best of 5s that go all the way like this. It's been an absolute barn burner. Thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate you hanging out in the B stream. Hopefully you've been enjoying these games as much as we have, because it's been awesome. It's not fun when you get to come back, cast some games, and it's like 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, 3-0. No, everybody is gunning for the top, and it's just awesome to see the way they push each other.
No, absolutely. And it's funny, like, even though we had a 3-0 to start the day, that was an interesting 3-0 to watch. That was a lot of fun. It's
still bizarre.
Yeah. It's like we see creators doing all this cool stuff, and then Classic or Stash just kind of wins anyways. And okay, so what I'm looking at here, right, is Classic. What is this probe just going for a rescout? Yeah, I guess it is. Yeah, okay.
He's like waiting for the Reaper timing. He was like, I'm gonna wait until the Reaper should be arriving at my base. This way, there's no chance it can get me, and he can at least confirm, okay, yeah, you're taking a natural, maybe poke the SCV, but since he went reactor into Cyclone, man, there won't be anything over there to deal with the probe unless the Reaper heads back soon. So he can be mildly annoying.
Yeah, that's always a bit of a problem. Although, as you pointed out, workers have a little bit of extra range now, so it's a little bit easier to handle. But I want to point out Classic going for a Stargate again, right? This is likely going to be Phoenix Colossus, is my assumption. There's a world where this is like Oracle into Blink, something like that. But because of the damage the probe got earlier, it's going to be two-shot by the Adept. So this natural, even with a Cyclone out, is going to be delayed just a little bit, shading out. Oh, nice job, Cure.
Close, very, very close there. There is the Oracle. And I mean, Oracle for the first unit always kind of makes sense, even if he wants to end up with the Phoenix Colossus, right? Because on some level, seeing the expansion timing and the fact that it was a Cyclone, it tells him that he wasn't going as fast as he possibly could have into a mine drop. He didn't immediately start making mines to go for like 3 or something right as the medevac hits. I do think there's still a good chance we get that mine drop, but he's actually queuing up a second Cyclone behind this, so maybe he just keeps it at home, and it's kind of like a side benefit to the information that he has. He's not as worried about it, and there is that Phoenix following up after anyway.
The other way to take a look at this Reaper will go down is, okay, you know it's a Stargate opener. You don't know exactly what it's going to be, but realistically, against any sort of Stargate opener, hitting with a Cyclone drop, something, just a bunch of anti-air stuff, actually looks up pretty nicely. But we said, okay, is this going to be Phoenix? Is this going to be Oracle into Blink? And it is going to be Oracle into Blink in this game. Classic, kind of turning the tables on what's expected. In fact, I think he had a Phoenix in production at one point that may have been scouted, and the moment the Reaper dies, slams 3 gateways down, puts the Twilight down, like he is, or 2 gateways down to the Twilight. He's changing. He showed Cure one thing, and now he's going for something else, and it's going to be interesting now to see whether that works out. If Cure, A, the wolves pull it over his eyes, and B, whether it matters with this attack moving onto the other side of the map.
The respect being shown, by the way, the fear of the Widowmine, the potential even of it. The Oracle comes in, he's like, is there something here? No, nope, okay. And then realize, oh, Viking. And then, that's, you think about patches that changed the course of history in StarCraft. It's still bizarre to see, it's always bizarre to see the Oracle die so fast to the Viking. Once upon a time, people were like, here, just make a Viking for the Oracle cheese. And you're like, well, it takes 7 hits to kill it. And now it takes like 3 or 4. And it's like, okay, game's a little different these days.
All right, but because of this, we see this attack, this anti-air, this anti-Stargate attack hitting. That's a lot of Stalkers on the map. A couple of Adepts to go deal with the Marines as well. Widowmine's going to take some damage here, and of course, you can do the fancy. Oh, he's going to do the fancy Adept Shade. Thinking about it, maybe. And there we go. Dodges the shot. Beautifully played.
Perfect.
And now it's like, well, you got this army. There's no stim. You're rallying across to your Cure, and you can kill the 3rd base. I think that's probably going to happen. But you're not going to dive into a mineral line. Yeah.
Yeah, what's so scary about this too is the Vikings deal basically double their regular damage on the ground against mechanical units. So that's Stalkers, that's Probes, Sentries, Immortals, all that jazz. So if he gets into a fight where he's like, oh yeah, I have enough Stalkers to fight these Cyclones, then he could get in trouble. Oracle actually goes back into main base. There's nothing to protect it. So a couple of SCVs are going to get popped. We do have the Cyclone drop also hesitating outside of the natural of Classic. But I think if you're Classic, you've got to be feeling good about the mileage this Oracle is getting for you. He didn't get too much early on, but comes back, gets 8 workers, and I mean, he still has the Cyclones inside of his own base, so the battle is not over, but he's at the very least buying some time to get that 3rd completed.
Yeah, but Blink is done, and he's getting a Phoenix to deal with this drop. And by the way, you say it re-enters? No, that's the 2nd Oracle. He lost the 1st one. The presence of mind here from Classic to go and say, yeah, I lost an Oracle. That sucks. I'm going to build a 2nd one because there's no way in the world he expects it. All of a sudden, you take a position where, oh, you lost your 3rd base. Doesn't feel all that great. You lost a couple probes. And you turn into a position you're actually really happy about because you did build that 2nd Oracle. And I think it died. No, it's still out somewhere. So you have that Oracle now. You have that map control available. Wait, did he build a 3rd one? No, okay, it's still the 2nd one. It retreated back home. So now Classic, he's the one that gets to be active on the map here with all these Blink Stalkers. There's a Robo Bay on the way. He's got this Oracle that can try to dive in and get a little bit more damage done. But again, the presence of mind to get that 2nd Oracle, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's taking advantage of some nice opportunities. Kind of steps forward a little bit here. A couple of the Stalkers do get picked, and it's rough because he's got a lot of gateway units. He has the Prism, But if we know anything about the Marines, they don't have stim yet, but once they do, actually getting both of those medevacs is absolutely filthy. The fact that he's pressuring him this much without stim, I wonder if Classic thinks stim is already done. He's like, I can't risk it. He's like, I'm not going to try and trade or poke because at any moment you press T, if I have half my blinks off cooldown, they're all going to die, right? So again, we've seen a lot of this in this series, but I'm just going to call back to it one more time. A lot of respect between the two of each other. They don't really feel like they can get away with stuff that they aren't like very specifically setting up as plays.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. Also, Classic should know the timing. Stim should be done by 7:30, if not kind of at 7:30.
Right? Exactly.
So he looks down at the clock. He's like, it is 7:28. Time for me to turn into a pumpkin. I'm going home.
I'm not pushing this guy. And meanwhile, Kier's like, bro, my stim's not done for 30 more seconds. Thank God. It's like I'm so glad he was scared of my giant ball of unupgraded Marines for about 30 seconds there. So, but you're right. It's exactly that. How many games do you lose as a Protoss where you think, oh, his stim's not done yet, then you fight, then everything dies instantly? It's a lesson you only need to learn once or twice.
Yeah, so this is one Colossus here, no extended thermal lance, but actually kind of dangling quite a bit. I'm surprised Kier didn't try to jump on it, but now there's Stalkers in front there. We got a couple stasis traps behind that. It's pretty cute. Stalkers blink forward. Widowmine is not going to go off. And we got a drop getting set up here. A couple Widowmines, as we see there. We got a nice job there with the hallucination just to trigger the Widowmine. But Kier's trying to multi-prong this, attacking from multiple angles, taking a lot of pressure. Widowmine drop is going to go off. Classic, not quite. Okay, there we go. There's the pull, but even still looks like it might get a couple probes on the gas. Yeah, 3 workers go down, and into the main base, that's going to be handled. So gets a little bit of damage. Oracle, or excuse me, Warp Prism on the other side. Looks like that's going to be dealt with, and the game goes on. 4th base on the way here for Classic. Extended thermal lance done soon. +1 attack on the way. Yeah, he might like a couple more upgrades, Nate, but it's game 5, all on the line. It's a nice, heavy macro game. I'm happy.
Yeah, we're getting to see them both trade some blows. I think so far, probably the only thing about that last exchange that I think ended up being a little bit interesting was the 2 Vikings that Kier had from the start of the game. He sent them to like land in the different mineral lines, and I think he just tried to send one home from behind the main. It is coming, but there's no chance it'll make it there. But he split 2 of those Vikings off when it was just that one Colossus without range yet, and I was like, it's one of the maybe he's hoping for that one back a little bit. But then the Widowmine, of course, followed up, and he got some probe kills here. But Classic seems to be anyway a lot more comfortable here on Alcyon.
Absolutely, and he's getting ready for that just late game Classic stats the Twisted Minds Protoss composition that we've been seeing. We don't see the Stargates going down just yet. He's got the one, not there, but Templar Archives done, and I was about to say Storm's going to be on the way, but instead Classic understands that he's got a bit of a timing right now. Maybe not a ton of Vikings, 6 Vikings on the field, so I don't know how I feel about that, but he is building a couple Archons here. Archons are not something you build just to be a part of your army and just sit there. They don't gain value. They actually get worse over time as ghosts come out. So instead, you get them exactly when you're getting ready to go try to lean into the tear and make something happen. And with 3 Archons on the field here, ghosts are getting made, Nate, but they're not here yet.
Yeah, he's rounding out the composition, and again, when we watch Kier stylistically, he plays a little bit less technically. You kind of get the vibe. He just wants a few of the ghosts to land the EMPs on the key units, take half the health off of quite a few of the Protoss units as well, even more for the Archons. So he's trying to play around that big bio ball, and in situations like this, I feel like what it's going to lean on is, can the Vikings get through the Colossi without all the bio being chewed up in the meantime? He's done a great job of zoning away, and this army for Classic is going to be so hard to engage. He's trying to spread himself out, but I'd love to see a preemptive force field before those EMPs even come out. Maybe Guardian Shield is fine too. SCVs get pulled from the side. The Colossi are trying to kite away from where the Vikings are. Prism is going for the pickup micro, but he actually dies with the Colossus in the Prism, and Classic's army gets absolutely knocked over. He killed a lot of SCVs, 73 probes to 28 SCVs, Bayo, but the army supply is double for Kier.
He's only single robo as well, so he can't even rebuild all that easily. Yes, 2 1s on the way. Yes, there's all these things, but Kier, he understands how much damage he did just to this army. Stalkers are going to do what they can to take away as much as possible. He just got to buy time. More Stalkers on the way, more Zealots on the way. There are shield batteries here. Ghosts, though, they have that EMP. So shield batteries, maybe they're going to matter just a little bit less. 1 Colossus on the field versus 4 Vikings looking for a surround. Can Classic make this happen, Nate? It's a big ball of bio.
Yeah, it's one of those situations too. He's like trying not to fall into the trap of it, as Classic's kind of setting up around both sides. Kier's army is so big. You win a fight like that, and all the alarm bells are going off in your head. You're like, end, push bounty, go, 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 go. And now he's going to be able to come in. There's a lot of stalkers on the south side, but really, as long as the Colossus gets popped, he has enough bio to destroy everything else. And there it is. Shield battery overcharge is rocking and rolling, but it is not enough. It's stalkers versus Marauders and Vikings on the ground. That is not going to be a good spot. Reinforcements are actually going to catch the stalkers trying to retreat towards the center, and they will be obliterated. Vikings are actually zoning the natural. There's just 2 Vikings in the natural by themselves with 1 Colossus dancing. There's nothing there to protect him. It's a painful sight to see.
It is, and this is still very, very good for Cure, but this army is so overstimmed. Every single Colossus shot is going to cause
one
so many problems.
Just right down the middle. Could kill quite a bit, but it does get popped, and both robos are exposed. If he loses the robos, I don't know what else Classic does.
No, it's all on these Colossus right now. Zealot's going to get on top of things. They do have upgrade leads. There is that. I mean, Zealot, these Sideblades are swiping away at a lot of stuff, but now it's about the reinforcements as well. Yes, there's an overstim, and yes, this army is very low, but there is a slow, steady line of blue running across the map here. Classic, he still has that 4th base. His economy is still doing a lot better than Cure has been, Nate. Have you heard about mules?
Now, the great thing is you don't need to actually have workers to win games as Terran. As long as you have 3 orbital commands or more, that'll just about do it for you. So that's what I'm saying. If you're, it's like everybody learns this. In that fight, I think he really believed he could win the game. But trading just for the workers, the Terran is always happy. It takes, all those units build 1 at a time out of those barracks. You try to keep the macro cycles running, but you end up in these situations where as long as you have enough of your bio left over and the tech units are dead, it's like, yeah, did you take care of the only units that can really stop this? Well, then they kill everything else. GG. Cure with the 3-2 victory as we get another one to game 5 here on the B stream.